right here. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining us. This is Divine Nchamukong. I'm your host on this very special edition of Chat Night Africa Live. 25 years ago, something happened in Rwanda. By the time the savagery stopped, not 8 people, not 80 people, not 800 people, not 8,000 people, not 80,000 people, 800,000 moderate Hutus and Tutsis had been killed. Some had their throats slit, the stomachs of pregnant women cut open, and the women who were not killed, were simply herded away like cattle into sex slavery. Today we do a special broadcast on Rwanda, not to weep for the now extremely beautiful country, but to celebrate love over hate and anger. As a matter of fact, we are celebrating a country and its people, both Tutsis and Hutus, able to put behind them a stinking, ugly past. Tutsis and Hutus now live side by side in complete unity as though nothing ever happened. The unity social critics or observers describe as that which exists with blinking eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, Rwanda may be hundreds or thousands of miles or kilometers from where you are. But what happened there can happen right where you are. So what lessons do we all draw from the genocide this time 25 years ago? That's the thrust of our show today. Participating from the cleanest city in Africa, Kigali, live on this show, Mr. Gatete Nyiringabo Ruhumuliza. Before we go live to Kigali, ladies and gentlemen, we will receive the talk show queen live from Yaoundé. That is going to be Tilder Kumichii. And the pastor and political activist, Kennedy Ejacha, will be joining us live from Maryland. So we have an interesting... All right. 25 years ago, as I said in my introduction, extremist Hutus turned on Tutsis and moderate Hutus, and in 100 days, people were slaughtered. Today, we are not mourning. Today, we're not weeping for Rwanda. We are celebrating. We are celebrating with them as they commemorate the 25th anniversary of the massacres that shocked the entire planet. Mr. Ejacha?
Yeah, I'm able to get you.
Beautiful. We are fine. Now, the first question I want to ask you, Pastor Ejacha, is you are a pastor and you are a political activist. Don't the two conflict?
No, there's no conflict. The conflict that can be between the two, it's all in the mind of those that don't know the role of a politician and the role of an activist. To put it simply, an activist is somebody who is advocating for political change or social change. So that's the basic definition of an activist, somebody who is advocating for political and social change. And then what's the role of the pastor? The pastor is somebody who is really working for change. He's working to change the life of people. He's working for the betterment of the people. So pastor and activist are inextricable to me. Those are two things that are inextricable. Let's see, the pastor par excellence is Jesus Christ. And when you take the life of Jesus Christ, you will realize that in the gospel of Jesus Christ, there is a huge social component. That is why Jesus Christ could go to a wedding and turn water into wine. And we don't say that because we encourage people to be drunk, but it's a biblical fact. That's why Jesus Christ could talk about the Good Samaritan. Remember the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. You had a well-to-do person that came to Jesus Christ and asked Jesus Christ that, what can I do to inherit heaven? And that's when Jesus Christ took him to the story of the Good Samaritan, where he talked about somebody that was living from Jerusalem to Jericho. He got attacked by robbers. And then, see what's very, very important about that story. Jesus Christ said that a priest came and passed by this guy that was in blood, that was robbed. The priest passed on the other side of the road. He talked again about the second person that came. He was a Levite. A Levite is somebody, in the church, those are people that do sacrifice on behalf of the people in the Old Testament. So another church leader came and passed. So you have two church leaders that passed. Now, you had a third person that came, and that third person assisted this man that was bleeding. That was the Good Samaritan. So we have to take the gospel of Jesus Christ for what it is.
Okay,
it's all about, let me just conclude, please.
Sure.
It's all about the betterment of people's life, whatever you do. The biggest problem is because people have confused politicians to robbers, politicians to swindlers. Politics is the art of the management of the city. So even inside the church, the pastor who says that he's not doing politics, to manage your church, you need to use the accounts of politics, the theories of politics and everything.
Let's talk about Rwanda, because today we are doing a special broadcast in celebration as we commemorate the sad events that happened in Rwanda 25 years ago. Would you say that the slaughterings went on because of the failure of the church? Because I went somewhere for a seminar, and the governor said, if you look at this town, come to this town on Sunday mornings, and the town is quiet. Everybody, by 11 o'clock in the morning, everybody's looking like an angel, coming from church, praise the Lord, hallelujah. Monday morning, you see monsters. So, what happened? I'm sure if you went to Rwanda, there were churches. And I'm going to be asking this question to our friend who will be joining us live from Kigali after you. I can see him already on the line. So, is it a failure of the church? Or why would the church, you would have a proliferation of the church in society and you have so much evil? Where are the Christians? What are they doing? Who are really there? Are they really Christians?
Thank you, Divine. That's a very, very important question, and you hit the mark with that your question. If you go back into, the post-Rwanda massacre, I think it's about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the Catholic Church officially asked for excuse. The Catholic Church, because they acknowledge their responsibility in the perpetration of the massacre. The perpetration of the genocide. So the church was not actively involved in the genocide, but their passive attitude was compromising. And that's the same thing that we are decrying. I am a pastor, and this is what I tell people. I will not sit and wait for a massacre to occur for me to come and tell the people that I am sorry. That when all this thing was brewing up, I was quiet. I didn't say nothing. I would rather speak and get misunderstood than stay quiet. So that's the problem of the church in Rwanda. They were very, very compromising their silence. They had a compromising silence. The church was no longer a place of safety. People ran and went to the churches, and they were pushed back away, depending on whether they were Hutus or Tutsi. This massacre, it wasn't something that just happened overnight. If you go back into the history of the recent history of Rwanda, years before the massacre, the violence in Rwanda had started, had taken core around 1990 with the emergence of the Front Populaire Rwandais, that their present president's party. So there was this rebellion. Remember that there was the Arusha Accord to bring peace. There was a peace deal that was brokered in 1993, about a year before the massacre. So in all of this, the social tension was such that people could have gotten involved and take preemptive actions to avoid the massacre. The church could have, at the front end, sensitize, educate, involve. If pastors were out there doing their job, talking to the people, we would never have had the massacre that we had in Rwanda. The pastors were just so passive, and you hit it when you say every Sunday everybody seems to be pious. Every Sunday everybody's pious, everybody's holy, and then on Monday you have tigers out. That's why I'm saying a good pastor is a pastor who does not limit himself to the announcements on the billboard in front of his church. Because if you go in front of every church, you see a billboard that says church service on Sunday, they give you the time. Church service on Wednesday, they give you the time. 2 days in a week, that's when people play the role in the pastoral role. If in Rwanda, pastor had gotten out of that billboard cocoon to be 24/7 pastors, it means everyday pastors, we wouldn't have had the expression of this level of hatred amongst brothers. That's why we should learn, we men of God should learn from what happened and then start acting preemptively. Because the Bible says a wise man is a man that plans for the future. It teaches about the farmer. The farmer is the epitome of a wise man. He sows the seed and waits to harvest tomorrow. So if we don't start sowing the seed of peace, when war breaks out, we will be responsible.
Do you know President Kagame?
I know him from the perspective of, an African who is interested in political affairs in Africa. I know him as a dictator. He's a dictator, although we can sugarcoat it with an adjective of, a benevolent dictator. Maybe we could sugarcoat it that way. But nevertheless, he's a dictator.
What's happening that you see a lot of Africans admiring Rwanda if Kagame is that bad?
Okay, they are admiring the infrastructural development in Rwanda, and it's something that I also admire. The cleanliness of the town, the buildings that are coming up. There's some phenomenal job that's being done from the perspective of an African in terms of infrastructural development. But I am a historian and an activist, and there is something that I want to say. I want to bring to the attention of, Pan-Africanist revolutionaries. If you take the example of Gaddafi of Libya. Gaddafi, in terms of the infrastructural development of Libya, it was phenomenal. It was majestic. Gaddafi took care of, the material needs of his people to the fullest and to the best. There was socialized medicine in Libya. But there is one thing that we should take away from what happened. It's that freedom is the most important thing that you can give to a man. If you give a man everything and you take away his freedom, you're just postponing the man's irritation. So that's why you see today Libya is where it is. If Gaddafi, had taken Libya down the path of democracy, where the people, in the midst of all that enjoyment, could feel that they are involved in the building of Libya, they would have defended their democracy. They would have defended their state. Because when the Western powers attacked Libya, for them, it wasn't an attack against Libya, it was an attack against Gaddafi. And it was very normal for Libyans to say, okay, well, this country belongs to Gaddafi. He owns everything. He's the Alpha and Omega. So the citizens did not consider themselves as partaker in the making of the Libya. That's why they could allow people come in and rush over their country.
Now you say Gaddafi, you say Paul Kagame is benevolent dictator. Well, road infrastructure. Rwanda now is one of the fastest growing economies in the entire Africa. Well, he would argue that, but that's what my people need. They need good roads, they need good schools, they're building satellite systems, they're assembling cars. He will argue that that's what they need. He will also argue, to a certain degree, against freedom, that it was this freedom that led Radio Mille Collines to spearhead fanning the flames of extremist Hutus slaughtering other fellow citizens. That's his argument. Why is he wrong?
No, he's wrong because it's not freedom. It's not excess freedom or unchecked freedom that was at the root core of the genocide in Rwanda. It was instead what fanned that genocide was the lack of freedom. Because remember, if you go
to
the Hutu, they were imposing their hegemony on the Tutsi. It was a moment of revenge for the Hutu. Before the Hutu came to power, the Tutsi had been ruling as a monarchy right up to 1961, because the Rwanda Revolution was 1959 to 1961. So the colonial master, the Belgian, had installed what we would call a monarchy. So in this monarchical system, the Tutsi were lording it over the Hutu. So now, when the Hutu took over, for them it was their own turn. But meanwhile, in a democratic society where everyone is involved in the management of the city, it's not about us revenging against the other. If the Hutu had liberalized the political system, they will not have what we have.
So the question becomes, is, because Africans talk about democracy a lot, is democracy necessarily the pathway to development?
Democracy is an essential ingredient towards development. It's not the only way, but it is the best way. It is the safest way, and it is the most cost-effective way towards development, because check and balances are inherent in democratic systems. Check and balances are inherent. Accountability is a great tool of democracy. It's natural for democracies to have check and balances, to have accountability system, but dictatorship can also be accountable or hold people to accountability. But the only thing is, the accountability that you see in a dictatorial system is an accountability where the standard is set by one individual and not the people. So if you have one individual of great moral value, and I'll put great moral value in quotes, because no matter how moral you are, but if you don't believe that people are free to express themselves, there will be a question mark on your morality.
You're watching Chat Night Africa Live special edition as Rwandans commemorate the 25th anniversary of the very sad events that went on there. And on the screen now, on the platform, is Pastor Kennedy Ejacha, political activist, very outspoken against dictatorship. He doesn't mask his hatred for dictatorship. So, I mean, you are a trailblazer. You talk so much about democracy. Why are Africans having so much trouble with democracy?
Yeah, so Africa, the biggest trouble that we're having with democracy comes from the fact that most of the people that are in position of power in Africa are not the ones who actually are wielding the power. They're just puppets. So those who are calling the shots in Africa are the Western, the Western Europeans, to be more precise. So we Africans, and I always say it is the wealth of Africa that is its greatest problem. People are sponsoring tyrants from out of Africa so that they can have access to the resources of Africa. And it's the same thing when I'm talking about Kagame and Rwanda. Rwanda is a corridor that opens into the wealth of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And mind you, the Democratic Republic of Congo could easily be termed as the Garden of Eden, because whatever mineral resources that you can think of in the world is found in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the Western world is using Paul Kagame for easy access to the resources of Congo. So that's why I always say the development in Rwanda is dope development. Because
how so?
Because they are stealing from Congo, and then when they steal from Congo, the Western powers that are using Rwanda to steal from Congo, when they take it away, the crumbs fall in Rwanda.
Well,
and
but Pastor
it is
Jacha,
the crumbs that are being used.
Pastor Jacha, you blame the West, and perhaps for good reasons. But some people would argue that if we Africans did not open the doors, the West don't bring in caterpillars and bulldoze themselves into Africa. Okay. What do you have to say about that?
All right, Mr. Divine Nchamukong, I'm coming to your house today. I'm coming to your house, and I'm telling you, and I'm coming with an AK-47. You see that headset that you have? I'm going to get that headset. I'm going to get your microphone, and I'm going to take over Chat Night Africa with my AK-47. I'm coming. Does it matter whether you want it or not? Once I have the AK-47, I subdue you. Would somebody turn around and say that, oh, Pastor Kennedy took over Chat Night Africa because Divine Nchamukong was a weakling, because he allowed it? No. It's because I used firepower against you. So we have to understand that in terms of force, there is a disequilibrium that does exist between Africans and Western powers. They have all the type of firepower that they need to subjugate. Hitler killed 6 million Jews. He took them to the gas chambers. Nobody talks about the responsibility of the Jews. Why? Because people are intelligent enough to understand that those that were taken to the gas chamber, they were taken against their will. That's why there's only one person who is responsible for the Holocaust. It is the Nazis. And that's why I say, please, and that's why I say, there's only one person that can be held responsible for the destruction of Africa. It is the destroyer. So who is it that is destroying Africa? It is Western powers. Those that came and installed colonialism against the wish of Africans.
I have two quick last questions for you. The first one is, and I really admire your vehemence against dictatorship, your distaste for it.
Thank you.
What would Pastor Ejacha do if you became the president of an African country? What would be your priorities, democracy or development?
The first thing that I'll do, I'll open the power base of my country so that power should rely on the people. So the first thing is democracy. Now, it might sound funny, but it's a lot to it. This is what I'm saying with regards to Africa. If Even if the leaders who are there entrusted their governing, I mean, if they trusted, not even entrusted, if they trusted their people, they will work for them. So when you see those leaders who were put there by Western powers, remember, most of those leaders that you have in Africa came in through coup d'etats that were organized with mercenaries from Europe. So to whom would they give their loyalty? Don't give their loyalty to the person that put them there. But when I said I'm going to put democratic institutions, it will be such that whoever is head of state in Cameroon or any other country, we're talking globally about Africa, they will owe their power from the power of the people. And that's why I'm saying, let's give the people the power so that we will be able to pay allegiance to them. Until that happens. That's why you see in America, no matter what happens, the politicians will always come back to the people because they know where the power is. In Cameroon, I take one example in Africa. In Cameroon, whatever the population says, Mr. Biya does not care because he knows where his power is coming from. And we all know where his power is coming from France. From France. So, if France sneezes, Biya will catch a cold. But if the people are coughing, doing whatever, Biya don't care. That's why there's a war in the Northwest and Southwest.
In a moment, we'll be going over to Kigali to talk with Mr. Gatete Ruhumuliza. And but before we take that trip to Kigali, my last question to Pastor Ejacha and political activist is, what are the lessons the entire African continent can draw from the events in Rwanda 25 years ago?
Yes, the first thing that we can draw is that
Mr. Gatete, please begin to get ready to come on the platform. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes. The first thing that I want us to take from the Rwanda incident is that humans can transform themselves into beasts at any time. That's why we should never, ever take people for granted, because it can flip at any time. We have the great opportunity to learn from this incident that took about 1 million lives. Some statistics will put it around 800, but it's around 800,000 and 1 million lives. Africa has come out of age. Let's get united. Let's get united. Let democracy be the standard. Because when power is vested on the people, just like in America, I take this one example. Many years ago, nobody ever thought that a black man can be president in America. Because the truth is, blacks are a minority. But because of the wonders of democracy, a black man was able to be president in America. And it is the same thing that I tell everybody. In the game of democracy, there is nothing like majority nor minority. Because at the end of the day, people will put their interests at the center and front of all considerations. Those whites that voted for Obama to be president, they voted for Obama because they believed that Obama incarnates their interest. A democratic Rwanda would see a Tutsi become president or a Hutu, depending on what the interests of the people are. So that's my greatest cry, that let democracy reign in Africa. Let human rights be a reality in Africa. Let Africa be for Africans.
Thank you so much. And you have been watching Pastor Ejacha. Once more, one of the most mouth-watering dishes from Rwanda, Kigali, as you exit the stage. Right now, we're going over to Rwanda, and I can see Mr. Gatete ready to come on the show. And Mr. Gatete, we will be bringing you live on the show momentarily. Please stand by. I hope we don't have technical problems. All right, that's my friend. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Can you say something?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you very well. I can tell you.
I do not have headphones, unfortunately.
But do you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Very good. We hear you too perfectly. Now, wow, what time is it in Rwanda now, in Kigali? You are fine. You are fine, sir.
It is approximately 1 o'clock.
That's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Wow. I can tell you that lots of people came on the show today to hear you speak to them. This is the first time
I hope I make it worth their while.
You're always very funny. Now, my first question to you, Mr. Gatete, is how do I pronounce your last name, by the way? No, go ahead.
Ruhumuriza.
All right.
Ruhumuriza.
All right. Thank you, sir. Now, 25 years after some of the most atrocious happenings the world has ever seen, what is the story of Rwanda today, sir?
It is a story of resilience. It is a story of responsibility, taking responsibility. When we came here, I was too young, but when my elders came here, they found nothing. Apart, they found a completely destroyed country. And what they did, to their credit, and why we're still here, is that they sat down and said, what happened to us and what can we do about it? They spent a year of dialogue, all parties. Some of the people who came to the meetings had killed people. The RPF, which had won the war and which had the power to enforce a system of governance, didn't do that, but actually brought all parties, called for people who were in the previous government to come and discuss and say, what is it that happened to us and why did it happen? And what are we supposed to do? What are the systems that we're supposed to put in place so that it never happens again? And since then, they've been revisiting that roadmap that they set up then. They've been revisiting it every day, every time. This is a country of dialogue. People meet annually in the national dialogue. They have a national leadership retreat annually. They have an evaluation of performance contracts annually. They have all sorts of platforms where they meet annually to revisit the things that they agreed that they're going to follow, so that lest we go back to what happened. So we're trying every year to revisit our commitments to peace and unity and reconciliation.
When I look at you, Mr. Gatete, I marvel with surprise because I titled this broadcast, Rwanda, Africa's Miracle. Was it appropriately done?
It is, depending on what sense we're talking. I mean, it's a miracle in the sense that we were dead and we kind of resurrected. So it's miracle in that sense. And I prefer that term to the term Rwanda, Africa's example, because we are no one's example.
What do you mean by that?
We are also, we are not an example. We're all still grappling with our problems. We haven't gotten where we want to be. We have many problems we still have to address. And one of the ways we do that is by saying we have to find homegrown solutions. So the moment you start saying we are examples, should find solutions within themselves, within their context, within their condition, and try to find solutions that they think are appropriate to them, peculiar to their predicament. We face a predicament. We come from a genocide. So
when you say this, a lot of people are going to scratch their head because I talk to so many Africans and they would like to have Rwandan citizenship.
Sure. And Rwanda indeed is a country.
Are they wrong? Are they wrong?
They're right. I encourage them.
In what sense?
Rwanda, the meaning, in the philosophical sense, Rwanda is a country that, you know, you have visa on arrival. Every African or every citizen of the world can get a visa here. So everybody is welcome and to have citizenship. But that does not solve Africa's problem. Because Africa's problem and Africa's solutions are supposed to be drawn from Africans themselves. And my colleague who came just before, there were so many points he raised. I would like to address them maybe later.
Yes, please.
But one of the problems is to try and take models from somewhere else and try to implement them in your country. It doesn't work like that. Every country has its own situation, its own history, its own context, its own problems, and you have to find solutions there. That's what true democracy is where people sit down under a tree, like we did with the Gacaca courts when we were faced with the massive amount of perpetrators of the genocide that we couldn't try in classical courts. We sat down under a tree and said, let's do community courts. And that's what we do about poverty. That's what we do about malnutrition. That's what we do about cleanliness. That's what we do about anything. We seek popular participation and ownership of the problems. And so when you say Rwanda is an example, there's nothing, when you take a model from Rwanda and you put it in another country, you're creating a problem for that particular country.
Now, when you talk about sitting down under a tree, how does that work? To solve the problem of cleanliness, to solve the problem of social justice, how is this set up to work? Teach us a little bit.
So basically, I will not teach you. I'm not in no position to do that. But what I will say is, these are things. Sitting under a baobab tree, you can see behind me there is a baobab tree. Sitting under a baobab tree is an African mall that is dated 1,000 years. Africans always sat down a tree to dialogue, to listen to the elders, to listen to listen to grievances of the population.
This is chat. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So what happens is that we have days of the month, like the last Saturday of the month is the day that people meet.
You go. Yes, Mr. Gatete.
Listen, before I continue with that, I would like to address. Before I continue with narrating to you what we do to address problem, I would like to address a few of the questions that were raised by my colleague who came on just earlier, if that's okay. All right.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
So there's this thing about Kagame being a benevolent dictator. And there's this dichotomy about infrastructure and development versus freedoms and democracy. I think it's a simplistic way of looking at things. I think if we talk about benevolence, it's a good thing, being a benevolent person. If we talk about infrastructure, that's a good thing. But let's speak about the dictatorship that people speak about. When I tell you that people sit under a tree to address problems of society, that, in my opinion, is the most entrenched model of democracy. When people sit under a tree, Kagame is not there. Kagame is not under every tree in Rwanda.
I like that.
People sit and say, we face this problem, we have to address it. Kagame is not going to be there physically. People think of Kagame, he's a human being. He's a manager of a country, and we do not all. He's not here trying to give me answers to.
This is Chat Night Africa. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
He's not here trying to tell me what to answer you. Democracy systems that we have here at what people do not understand is that our system is called dialogue, a constant quest for solutions through dialogue and consensus. We do not have aggressive democratic processes. People are free to speak. People are free. Freedom of expression is accepted on the condition that we do not use freedom of expression to divide people, that we do not use freedom of expression to do populism, to stigmatize a specific group of people, that you do not use freedom of expression to attack Hutus, or to attack Tutsis. Now, my colleague spoke about checks to democracy. Now, how do you enforce these checks? Because human beings are not perfect. You agree on the rules of the game, but they will not necessarily respect those rules of that game. Now, when they fail on those rules and they are disqualified based on the same rules, you may not call that dictatorship because the rules are written. There is a constitution which enshrines most of these principles that I'm telling you about. It's not Kagame, he didn't dream this. There was a constitutional commission, and then there was a referendum, and people said, these are the rules that we accept. They should not be, genocide ideology should not be allowed in the name of freedom of expression. Media of hate, which participated in the genocide in the past, should not be allowed in the name of freedom of expression. Now, when people agree on something like that, there are systems that are in place, there are laws that are in place that repress hate speech, genocide ideology, and so on. Now, politicians will always try to cut corners. Populists, journalists, all sorts of people will come and try to go back to where we come from. That means saying, oh, Tutsis are bad, or Hutus are bad, or people from the north or the south or the Christians or the Muslims and so on. And those are the people who are disqualified from the political system because they have broken the rules that were approved by the entire population. Now, not everyone who says they are a politician is de facto a politician. You have to listen to the content of his ideas before you give them the right to be a legitimate politician, to be a legitimate journalist, to be a legitimate commentator. The moment someone comes with a speech of hate, of stigma, that person is not qualified to be a politician. No one has been put in jail in Rwanda for saying that there was unemployment. There is unemployment. There's 1.5 million young people in Rwanda who do not have jobs. That's a serious problem. I'm saying this, I will not go to jail for saying that. No one has been put in jail for saying the quality of education is not up to scratch, or issues that are critical to society. People have been put in jail for saying the genocide did not happen, for saying we the people from this region should rule because we are from this region. People have been put in jail for telling their children that they should continue the genocide agenda and so on. These are things that are repressed by the law, and the entire society agrees. Now, if you come and you say you're a politician and you want to speak about the developmental issues like they do in the United States, you may not compete with Kagame because he has been performing very well on those scopes. So what do you do? You come and say, but this Kagame, he came from this region, he came from this group, therefore he must go because he's not Rwandan. He comes from Egypt. They used to say the Tutsis come from Egypt and Ethiopia and so on. Now, when you start saying those things, yes, you might arouse. Populism always arouses people. You know this in France, you know this with Brexit, you know this with Marine Le Pen, you know this with Trump. Populism arouses people. But in Rwanda, it does not only arouse people, it kills people. It just killed 1 million people 25 years ago. So we're much more extra sensitive to populism than any other country that is much more resilient. One day, perhaps, we will get to a point where everyone is educated, everyone has food, everyone has healthcare, and then we can allow populists to go about their business. Today, we are sensitive to it. Now, is it Kagame who came up with that? No, there is a constitution that was voted by a referendum massively by the population. The population do not want populism because they know where they come from. Now, when that is allocated to Kagame as one person, it is disingenuous. And also, when people mix hate speech with democracy and freedom of expression, I think that's also misleading.
That is so good. I mean, you see why people just wanted to hear from you. And viewers, you are watching my friend, Mr. Gatete, live from the cleanest city in Africa. That is Kigali. Tell me a little bit again. What do you think
it is clean? Just 1 minute. What do you think it's clean?
I want to ask you the question.
People will tell you Kagame cleaned this city. It is not true. We cleaned this city. People meet on the last Saturday of the month and clean the city. not because Kagame told them to do so, but because they sat together and agreed that it was good for them to clean the city, and decided that they're going to meet every last Saturday of the month to clean the city. So I've been living in several cities in Africa. I lived in South Africa, I lived in Mozambique, I lived in many cities. People there say our leaders do nothing, that's why our cities are dirty. I tell them, no, you do nothing, that's why your cities are dirty. It is not the job of the leaders to clean after you. It is your job to clean your area, because by cleaning your area, you're also being sensitized to cleanliness. If I see, I'm not a policeman and I'm not a government official, but if I see someone littering on the street, I will personally feel angry because I'm the one who cleans that city. So it has to be entrenched. Policies have to be entrenched. People have to have ownership in them for them to be sustainable. But go ahead with the question.
I mean, if you move around cities across Africa, you see mountains of garbage. How is it, tell me a little bit, how is it that you Rwandans, switched the mentality? What triggered this change of mentality? And what happened? If you see somebody eating sugarcane or groundnuts, how does it happen that the person doesn't have the instinct to throw, excuse me, the peelings or the chaps along the street as he walks around, or just urinating around?
Because that very person who's eating the sugarcane is the person who cleans that street. He does not need a policeman to monitor him, because on the last Saturday of the month, he is the one who's going to clean the street. He is responsible. It is responsible citizenship. So the moment you find these piles of garbage in many cities, chances are the people of those cities are waiting for the city council to come and remove them. Now, the moment you tell the people to remove them themselves, they will not pile them up anymore. I used to live in cities where people peel potatoes and so on, and drive their car on the street, open the window, and throw them out the window. I see this in many cities. Now, because those people do not clean those streets, that's why they litter. They're waiting for the government to come and clean for them. If they were made to clean their streets themselves, they wouldn't litter.
Well, somebody's asking, how do we get, how can somebody call into this show? No, this is not a call-in show. You can type what you want. You can ask my guest. This guy is so brilliant. Everybody's just writing and say, wow, wow, wow. They haven't heard this from Africans before. He is live. Read. Okay, no problem. You read the comments after the show. And after, in the green room, you can post your comments, your questions to Mr. Gatete, who is joining us on this platform live from Kigali. You can post your questions after the show. He will respond to you. So, I mean, you said something very important, because the tendency is that people wait for others, the city councils, to come and clean the street. Yeah, for government to do it.
But it's true for cleaning the city. It's true for healthcare. We have universal coverage healthcare. We do not wait for the government to subsidize this. We look for money ourselves in our neighborhood to ensure that everybody has healthcare. Therefore, women are sensitized to go seek prematernal healthcare because their neighbor, their husband, their brother has contributed to this scheme. The moment you put people at the center, people speak. The democracy that my colleague was defining a minute ago is people talking on television. Concept, empty concept. Real democracy is when you put the power, not the power to vote only, but the power to solve their own problems in their own hands. That's real. That's why, I'll give you another example. Kagame gets elected with beyond 90% of the votes. People say this cannot be democratic. How does the leader get elected with 90% of the vote? Fair point. Now, in United States where you live and in Europe, presidents get elected with 25% of the vote, of the 25% of the electorate, of 25% of the population. That makes it a tiny minority of people who bother to wake up on election day to go vote, because most of the population is disenfranchised. They do not believe that these politicians are there for them. And when a president gets elected with that tiny percentage, they call that perfect democracy. When a president gets elected here, people in the West, they exercise their democratic right massively too, but they exercise it to protest, not to elect, but to protest politicians. The same amount of people who elect Kagame are the same amount of people who are out in France today wearing yellow vests protesting against Macron. Why? Because both have the same needs. They need food, they need security, they need equity, they need equality, they need fairness. But one sells them empty concepts on television every evening, and the other actually works with them to enforce this. So that's really the difference here. It's to put people at the center of the problems and at the center of the solutions. This is a poor country. We do not have oil and gold. I will come back to the DRC oil when you give me a chance. But we do not have those things. We don't have rents that we can distribute money like Gaddafi used to do. We do not have that. Therefore, we have to look for solutions within ourselves, which is why we start with quick wins, low-hanging fruits, like cleaning our own streets. No one is too poor to be dirty. This is something that we can do ourselves. We don't need to wait for anybody.
Let me ask you this. President Kagame has boldly said he wants to make your country, from where you are now live talking on Chatnet Africa, the Taiwan of Africa. What concretely is he doing to turn this into reality?
First, he's not the one who said that. President Kagame wouldn't say that. Rwandans do not say they want to be some other country. Just like Rwandans do not like to be said that they are an example to another country. We want to turn Rwanda into Rwanda, but a better Rwanda. Now, coming back to that, what is concrete about it? We want what these other countries have done and what we can learn from them is the ease of doing business. In this country, you can register a business within a matter of hours. When you register, the system is so swift that the moment you open a business, immediately you have your deed. For if you want to build, you have your title deed and so on. And
people don't bribe. People don't bribe to get.
About bribe, how would you bribe? Because one of the best, most effective ways of fighting bribe is to put all the services online, so that you don't have to interface with the civil servant sitting next to you trying to ask you to bribe them. The only way your thing is not going to work is when the internet is down, and usually the internet is not down in this country. So people, when you want to get your title deed, your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, your driving license and so on, you go online, you use your telephone or your computer. You don't see a civil servant. There's no way you can bribe them because you don't get to meet with them. So it's harnessing technology to provide governance. This is efficiency. This is good governance, but in the sense that when people talk to each other, meet with each other in the evening. I used to live in a country where for me to get a work permit, I would go to the office. The officer would slip their telephone number to me. And then in the evening after work, I would call him and we'd go, I'll buy them chicken and drinks. And then we'd exchange. I've lived this myself. Now in Rwanda, this thing, you can only go to see an officer when they're handing over your paper to you. Or it can be even mailed to your mailbox. You do not have to see an individual. You do all the services online. We have online services for just about any document that you need in government.
Wow. You know what? This is mind-blasting. And
but these are simple things that you can do.
They're simple, but not achievable or not doable in many African countries. This is why you listen, after this show, just go back in the comments and see what people are saying about you and about your country. Now, the other question I wanted to ask you is, 25 years ago, and I mean, it was some of the most horrendous things you can ever imagine. How have you gotten past that Hutus and Tutsis can sit and talk to each other and there's nobody wanting revenge? What is the magic you guys have used?
Number one, my brother, I do not wish to my worst enemy, I don't have enemies, but I do not wish to my worst enemy to experience that. The moment you see that with your own eyes, it sobers you up. You stop nonsense, you focus. Because when you see that, you say, oh my God, how have you gone here? We should not play around with this, this is dangerous. It's number one. Number two, if we did not seek, how would have revenge look like?
This is
How,
Chaplain. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
how would have revenge look like? Killing millions of people? So you have lost already 1 million people, and you want to lose some more millions of people? We do not conceive Rwanda, and this is why people say we steal from DRC or blah, blah, blah. We do not conceive Rwanda as a gravy train, a place that can enrich us. We conceive it as a workshop that is incomplete, that requires manpower, that requires energy and force. Therefore, we cannot discriminate or kill people or revenge, because we need the same people to come. When you're building a house, you need people to come and work in it. It's only when you're eating a cake that you do not want people to come. When you're here,
you are so smart, boy. Come on. I could listen to you all night.
Simple examples. If you're building a house and people volunteer to come and help you build it, you will say yes, by all means. It's only when you conceive your country as a gravy train that is distributing perks and advantages to people that you try to keep people away, you try to stigmatize groups of people so that you can have as little people as possible to eat your cake. Now, Rwanda is not a cake. Far from there. It is a workshop, completely incomplete. So we need people. Therefore, you find people, some people have been killed that you could have used in the development. Had there not been a genocide, we'd be much, much further than we are today. Now, we cannot, the killers have gone through a system of the Gacaca courts. They have confessed what they did. They have asked for forgiveness. They have been forgiven. They're the ones who are building this country. They are doing trade. They are doing business. They are doing teachers, priests, pastors, engineers, doctors. They killed people, but now they are being put to good use. They are saving people. That's how you salvage a country. Because if you go in a circle of revenge, then how do you build?
The other question I wanted to ask you is, across Africa, you have people who believe that armed insurrection against the government is the way to go, and probably because the government isn't listening to them. What advice would you give to people, your brothers and sisters across Africa who are in armed conflicts?
Right.
Because you have tested it, and we're not talking about
Yes.
80,000 people. You're talking about 800,000, close to 1 million people. So you definitely, when you speak on this, I'm going to listen, because you've had your feet in those shoes. Go ahead, sir.
When people have taken arms against the government, it is not advice they need. Let's go back to the drawing board. Why were they made to take arms against government? Young people, usually it's young people who are doing this. Young people need opportunity. I'll tell you a quick story. I hope I make it fast.
Go ahead, sir.
Young people in Rwanda, by the year 2000, were still dreaming of going to the West. So they were in Kigali passing time looking for a visa to go to America, to go to Europe. Because they could not see what they saw on television, they could not see in their own country. Young people want good shoes, good cars, good life, opportunity. Young people like to dream. When you do not provide that to them, they will either leave. Those who cannot leave, they assume that the leaders, especially in countries where you see leaders driving in expensive cars, living a lavish life, while the people are poor, people feel that they are being robbed. So when they take arms, it's because they have not had access, peaceful means of accessing things that they need in their lives. So what you do, you create social mobility for everyone. You do not create class society. You do not create nepotism. In Rwanda, I can tell you, my brother, I do not know one brother of the president. I do not know. There's no one member of the president who is in government. All the ministers, I know them. There's no single brother, cousin, or remote cousin of the president. All the CEOs, or the so on. Now, when you have a country where you see, I can also get there, and these people talk to young people and say, I got here because I worked hard, I did this and that. But they see that this person is not in that position because of how they look, not because they are Tutsi, not because they are Hutu, not because they're related to the president. People see that there is value in working hard. So I told you in the year 2000, young people wanted to. Today, Rwanda is the country that has brought the maximum of its diaspora back to the country. In Africa, in the entire continent. People are actually, the brain drain is opposite. Young Rwandans who live in America and Europe are coming back because they see they can build their future here. And they can build a future that is as beautiful or more than the future that they had in the West. Now, it's because the country is trying within its little means, because once again, they are very little, to provide equal opportunity. A long way to go, but you have to show people before they take arms, you have to give them opportunity. I told you that we have 1.5 million young people who are unemployed. That means we have to create, and we have 200,000 young people who come on the job market every year. That's the amount of jobs we have to create every year. 200,000 jobs for young people. For them not to take arms, like you said. If we don't want them to take arms, we can't feed them propaganda, democracy, blah, blah, blah. We have to provide them with opportunity. And that's our challenge.
What's the, listen, Mr. Gatte, I could listen to you all night, but are you promising to come back again, sir? I mean.
Absolutely, anytime.
Listen, when this show is over, go back to the comment section and read what people are writing about you and your beautiful country. Now I see why people are looking for Rwanda nationality.
But they are well, okay, I want to use this opportunity to tell everyone who's looking for Rwandan citizenship to come. This is not one of those countries that has xenophobia. We have zero xenophobia. In fact, I suspect that even foreigners have more rights than me. I don't know.
What's your last word today, sir? What's your last word on the show today?
My last word.
And I'm promising viewers that I'll bring you back again. But what's your last word today, sir?
My last word is that we Africans have been here before colonialism. There is nothing new that has happened to us that our ancestors did not face. These people who are coming with new concepts of democracy, of this and that, they are interesting, but we have to be careful to look at how our ancestors solved problems that are peculiar to us before the colonialists came, and try to draw from there, harness what they call harnessing indigenous wisdom to address our problems. It has served us Rwandans. When we were faced with the biggest problems, we always go back to our culture, to our history, and say, how did ancestors do this? You know, Hutus and Tutsis did not meet in 1994. They lived together for 1,000 years. It's when the colonialists came that they started saying, you Tutsis are from here and you Hutus are from here. Hutus and Tutsis had been living together for 1,000 years. So why did Rwandans forget how Hutus and Tutsis lived together before the colonialists and started following what the colonialists told them about Hutus and Tutsis and started looking at the next person as a foreigner or an enemy? What I can tell to my African brethren on this show is please revisit, speak to your ancestors so that you can regain consciousness.
Whoa. Oh gosh, listen, I'm so blessed that we had some connections and then I fell on you so accidentally. You were supposed to come on last Sunday, but I realized that you guys were very busy with the commemorations in your beautiful country. You are setting the example for the rest of Africa. Well, somebody is saying, please advise Cameroonians. You know what's going on in Anglophone Cameroon?
Tell them, first of all, that we have some nice Cameroonians who are here, who are Rwandans now. Excellent. Yeah, we're blessed with Cameroonians. They are a blessing. My advice to them, do I have an advice for Cameroonians? I have wishes for Cameroonians. I don't have advice. I wish them peace and stability and prosperity. It's a very rich country. It's much more easier to make it rich than making it poor. It has everything it needs. But before I leave, I did not address the Congo issue.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
You see, what we ask of people here in this tiny country where we live is open mind. People come here and they see progress, they see some development, they see some cleanliness. Because they have not seen it in the neighborhood or only see it a few times, they believe there must be something sinister. There must be some sinister agenda that is linked to it. It's just impossible for this to happen. I went to school with many Africans, and when I used to tell them that education is free and universal for the 12 first years, or that healthcare is free for everybody, the next question was, do you have oil? Now, the most important natural resource that human beings have is not buried beneath in the earth. It's here. This is the biggest natural resource that a country has. Now, you have to tell your people to dig the ground and remove resources from there, or to dig their heads and remove resources from there. Now, some people have been told that their countries are rich. It is a big mistake. They must be told that they are rich in their heads. It's human capital. It's not natural capital. It is human, it is in the head. Now, Congo today, just to prove this history of minerals in Congo, there are drones and satellites by the UN, by the US, by everybody, patrolling the border between Rwanda and Congo to see if there is even a stone that comes from Congo every day, to ensure that that road is there. But this narrative is still continuing. Rwanda receives 30% of its GDP from tourism, because, like you say, it's clean. We clean it so that people can come and do their conferences and meetings here. That's 30% of our GDP. We get 30% of our GDP from agriculture exports: tea, coffee, pyrethrum, flowers to make pesticide, and so on. And then we get the other 30% of our GDP from services and banking and so on. Now, why does this little, it remains a small limited budget. Why does this limited budget perform better than countries that have richer resources? The budget of Rwanda, it's because the budget of Rwanda is as much as how much money another person can steal from his country. There's not enough for thieves. If people are busy stealing their country, they could be as rich as they want. One person can pocket the budget of Rwanda in his pocket and walk away. We don't have rich people. You can ask me in Kigali, we don't have, who's the richest man in Kigali? I don't even know. You walk in Kigali, you will find it clean, but you will see that people don't drive Ferraris, people don't organize big parties, people don't have money to splash, because that's the money that's going in infrastructure. And incidentally, it so happened that no one took it and put it in his pocket. Basically, this accountability system, where we have an annual performance contract in this country, every year, at the beginning of the year, every civil servant, minister, local leader, up to the level of a household, they sign performance contracts. They set performance targets. For example, household performance contract would be, I will buy a television, I will send all my children to school, I'll buy health insurance for all my kids. It's not a lot of money, it's $2. I will not beat my wife. I will not quarrel with my wife at night, because it's been proven that GBV is a source of poverty in a household. So I will not beat my wife. I will live in harmony. And you pledge this to your neighbors. Local leaders say, I will build the school, I'll build the bridge, I'll build the hospital, I'll build the market, and so on. Now, at the end of the year, we have a national dialogue where all these leaders are called to report on how they perform. And there is a hotline. The president is the moderator of this session. There is a hotline for people in the place where this leader is responsible to call in should this leader lie. So if you go in front of the president and say, oh, I build a school, I build a factory, someone from your area is going to call and say, hang on, I live here, I'm standing here, and this person has not built any of the things that he claims. And these people usually are revealed of their duties and replaced if they have not performed 1 or 2 years in a row. That's accountability. Number two, Twitter, this very simple social media tool, is used in Rwanda as a tool of accountability. You can tweet the president now and he will respond to you.
Are you serious?
All the time. He's the most active African president on Twitter. If you go, I come to you, you are a minister, and I want something, and you tell me off, or you do something, I have Twitter. I will tweet, Mr. President, I'm standing here with Minister so-and-so, or you take a selfie, and say, look at how this office, the officer is sleeping or something. The president will respond immediately. As a result, all leaders in this country are on Twitter because they know the president is on Twitter, and people have been fired. So this is showing you accountability. My personal example, I was driving, a policeman came to me. He started asking me weird questions. He had not reached the level of bribe. I told him, my friend, first of all, let me just warn you that I'm not going to bribe you. And second, I'm actually going to tweet the police. By the police, I'm standing here, and officer, because their names tags are here, officer so-and-so is just about to ask me for a bribe. This policeman could not ask me for anything because you can tweet the police and the police will respond. I have tweeted the police several times because I've been a human rights lawyer in this country for many years. And I have tweeted the police, the president, the minister, the so-and-so, and they instantly respond. In fact, this is 2 o'clock in the morning. Some of them might still respond. So these are some of the tools, all sorts of tools that you can find that are possible to find. We harness them to ensure accountability of leaders. Now, you can talk about democracy as an abstract concept, which we all aspire for, just like heaven and God and so on. Fine. But democracy has to be exercised in tangible figures. Women have to be represented in parliament. You know that women represent 65% of the Rwandan parliament today. People have to access services, service delivery. It has to be good quality, effective, timely, and so on. Justice has to be rendered. If you have a case in court, you file your case online. You follow the progress of your case online. You do not meet the registrar of the court. You meet the registrar on the day where you're going to meet in court. This is a way of harnessing tools that are available to the entire planet to ensure accountability, to ensure good governance. Now, that's what I can tell you. But we can go now around in a philosophical discussion about democracy. I have nothing to say because it's philosophical. But in tangible, practical terms, that's what I can deliver to you.
Thank you so much. I said I could go on and on. Believe me, you'll be coming back. We have lots of things. Thank you so much again. God bless you. God bless the people of Rwanda.
Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for this show. Thank you for informing Africans. I salute you. Whatever support you need from me, I'll come on your show anytime.
All right, sir. And please, I want to make more friends, women and men alike, in Rwanda. First of all, the ladies are very beautiful anyway.
Ladies are beautiful. Where are you from?
From Cameroon.
I've been to Douala, man. Women are beautiful. And I made friends. So it's only fair for you to also make friends here.
Absolutely, sir. I know it's late there. Thank you for coming on this show. And we'll talk offline and talk about other things, okay?
Thank you.
And that has been Mr. Gatete live from Kigali. This has been Chat Night Africa.